You're listening to Luke's English Podcast. For more information, visit teacherluke.co.uk. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Luke's English Podcast. How are you doing out there in podcast land? Happy New Year, everyone. It's 2022. Can you believe it? The future has finally arrived. Here we are. We're living in some kind of science fiction film. You know, those old, well, I say old, they're not that old, but you know the science fiction movies that came out in the 80s and the 90s and maybe the 70s? And a lot of them would, at the beginning of the film, they would give you a date. You know, beep, 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 like the date would arrive on the screen. Like, you know, the Terminator movies that they have scenes that are set in the future, and they kind of give you a date at the bottom of the screen. And it's a date that is supposed to give the feeling or the impression of being way off into the future. This is what the future is going to look like. That's what the movie makers were saying to us. This is our vision, our scary and dramatic and action-packed vision of the future. And bidip, bip, bidip, the date would come up on the screen. And sometimes the date would be like 2022 or something. And, you know, the audience in the cinema or watching at home on tape, on VHS or whatever, or DVD later on, the audience will be going, oh, 2022, imagine what the world will be like. It's going to be like Terminator with robots walking around, killing people with lasers and stuff. And, you know, gangs of resistance fighters making their way through the rubble. Well, we've actually finally made it. Here we are in 2022. No Terminators, as far as we know. I don't know, maybe they have invented Terminators and they're so, like, the technology is so advanced and clever that they're living among us and we don't even realize it. And any minute now, you know, it'll be like, activate Order 66, and they'll all spring into action and do what they have been programmed to do. I hope that's not the case. But anyway, here we are. It's 2022, a new year, the beginning of a new year. So happy new year to all of you. Even if you don't really do, you know, the new year at the same time as we do where I'm from. Does that make sense? I know I'm saying that in some places you have a different time for your New Year celebrations. And also for those people who are listening to this, you know, at another time of the year, maybe you've just found this episode and started listening to it, and it's like June 2029 or something. I don't know. I'm just going to wish all of you Happy New Year. So here we go. Happy New Year, everyone. And so I think this is the 13th time I've wished you a Happy New Year on this podcast. Or I'd say you. I don't know if you have listened to all of those episodes, but it's certainly the 13th time that I've said Happy New Year on this podcast. Hello to any super long-term listeners who've been listening to this podcast since the very beginning and who have heard me say Happy New Year all those times. Hello there, welcome back to the podcast. Here we go, episode 756. Well done for sticking with the podcast for all that time and for not getting completely fed up with me repeating myself. I'll also say hello to all of the medium-term listeners, the people who sort of started listening maybe a few years ago, and you're still listening. Well done. You haven't listened to the entire archive of episodes, but you're doing really well. And also, I should say, Happy New Year and hello, welcome to all of the new listeners, those people who've, you know, only started listening recently. Maybe you discovered the podcast recently, and, you know, maybe you found it through a YouTube video or something like that. It could have been something like The Mountain, that short story that I did on YouTube. That one has been very popular on YouTube. Currently, it has in the region of, I think, 800,000 views on YouTube, which is pretty good. So I expect I got a few new people coming from that video. So hello to you. And, well, I think that a lot of the people who enjoyed The Mountain, that short story, they all seem to want me to just do that. They just want me to do short stories like that. And I would certainly like to continue doing those short stories because I think they're good and useful. But it's hard to find the good stories, actually. It's really hard to find good stories online that I can use for episodes like that. But I will try to do that as much as possible. So anyway, hello, welcome to the podcast. I am rambling. I'm in full ramble mode. And I don't know if the podcast sounds different. I'm using my portable audio recorder and I'm walking around my flat, so it might sound a bit different to normal, but that's fine. I'm going to explain all these things in a moment. But yes, in this episode, I'm going to wish you a happy new year. I've already done that. And then I'm going to ramble a little bit about what's going on in LEPland, what's going on in my world at the moment. I'm going to restate some of my aims and objectives for this podcast, just to make sure you know how I intend to help you with these episodes. And I'm going to give a few comments on how you can use the podcast to improve your English, with reference to some recommended episodes from the archive. Okay, I'm reading from some notes which I have on my computer here. It's not a script, just some notes. But I will put the notes onto the page for this episode on my website, so you can check them out if you want to. You'll also find in those notes some links to things I'm going to talk about during the episode. So the next thing it says on my notes is Happy New Year, everyone. New listeners, long-term listeners, mid-term listeners, and anyone else who happens to be listening. But I've done that now already about 5 times. So add that to the 12 other episodes in which I've said Happy New Year. I've probably said Happy New Year about 5,000 times in total on this podcast, not even in this episode. But I will also say all the best for 2022. And let's hope it's a good year. Let's just hope for a reasonable year. Yes, let's just hope that it's all right. We just want to survive, please. Can we just get some kind of normality this year, please? That would be nice. That's what we want. I don't know if that's what we expect, but that's certainly what we hope for. Just some peace and calm and some normality. Is that too much to ask, world? I don't know, but we will see. Certainly no Terminators, okay? Please, just hold on a bit, all right? No Terminators yet. But all the best, seriously, all the best for 2022. And try to keep up your motivation for learning English throughout the year. Because, yes, this is a podcast for people learning English. And I expect that's you. You're either learning English or trying to improve your English, or at least maintaining your English. And that's why you're listening to this podcast. Or maybe you just listen to it just for the fun, just for the sheer fun. The stuff about Terminators and things, I don't know. But I think that the main point of this is to help you work on your English. So keep up your motivation throughout the year. Some of you might have just started listening to this podcast because you've got a New Year's resolution to improve your English. So you've decided to start listening to a podcast in English, and this is the one that you've chosen. Maybe you're shopping around. Maybe you're kind of, looking at all the different English learning podcasts and kind of experimenting with them and going, maybe I'll listen to this one. Maybe I'll listen to that one. And you've started listening to this. So, welcome. And I hope you carry on. I hope this is the one that you choose to continue listening to. Lots of other people do. And I've been doing this for, how many years? 13. This is the 13th year now. So stick with me like the rest of my Lepsters, my listeners. LEP, that's Luke's English Podcast. Lepsters are my listeners. And LEPland is the sort of, let's say the metaverse, the kind of metaphysical universe that we all live in. So welcome to LEPland. And I hope that I can help you with your English as we continue doing this project, this long-term project that I call Luke's English Podcast. So, I'm on my feet now, and I'm going to do something very important. And you're thinking, what is it, Luke? You're going to tell us the secret to improving our English? The secret to fluency? The secret to getting a British accent? No. I'm not going to tell you any. There are no secrets, he says. He says, talking over the sound of the tap. There are no secrets for learning English. It's just practice, 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 the 5 Ps and the 5 Ms, motivation, 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 and the 5 S's, speaking, 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 how many S's? Speaking, 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 and speaking, and lots of other things. You've just got to do lots of practice, and you've got to stay motivated and hopefully enjoy it, and try to stay connected to the English language. Try to get English into your life on a regular basis. Do some studying as well, right? Do a bit. Do some vocab studying, do some grammar studying, do some pronunciation work, do plenty of reading. There's a lot of stuff involved. The main thing is try to do some English things every day. Okay, now we could get into that in a lot more detail, and I have done in the past in previous episodes. As I will explain during this episode. But no, that's not the important thing that I'm about to do. The important thing I'm about to do is, that's right, make myself a cup of tea. You can probably hear the kettle boiling as I get a mug from the cupboard. This is important. It's important for me. I need tea to help me keep going. And you're probably thinking, Luke, why didn't you make the tea before you started recording? Yes, that would have been a good idea. But the conditions that I'm in at the moment mean that everything is a little bit disorganized and it's a little bit crazy here at the moment. I'm going to tell you about that. How was your Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas? Did you have a break during the Christmas period? I hope you had a nice time. Did you celebrate New Year? Did you do anything? I wonder how you spent your holiday period. For me, it's just been an incredibly stressful and complicated few weeks. In fact, if you've been listening to this podcast for the last 6 months or so, then you will have heard me regularly mention or regularly say, we're moving to a new flat and that might disrupt the podcast. I don't know how it's going to affect my ability to upload episodes. Well, the moving was postponed and postponed and postponed. I thought it would happen in October. It didn't. Then it was postponed all the way through November and December. And of course, the worst possible time for us to actually have to make the move to the new apartment was in the middle of the Christmas break, and that's exactly what happened. So it's a long story. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. Suffice to say, basically, we've bought our first apartment. I say we, that's my wife and I, and we've got a 4-year-old daughter. She's 4 now. She had her birthday about a week or two ago. She didn't actually contribute any money to the to the purchase of the flat because she's only 4. But my wife and I have bought our first apartment together. I live in Paris, so I'm from England. But these days I live in France. I live in Paris. My wife is French. We met each other in London. I'm giving you my life story now. Is this necessary? I don't know, but I'm doing it anyway. So I wet my wife? No. Don't do that. Don't wet your spouse. It's a bad idea. They won't like it unless they want you to. No, I met my wife in London, and we sort of, we started dating and stuff. She had to go back to Paris, and we sort of had a long-term relationship for a couple of years, and then I decided to make the move to Paris so that we could be together. That's how romantic it was. I'm such a romantic person. Yeah, so here I am. I'm still here living in Paris. And finally, my wife and I have actually managed to buy an apartment in Paris. And the apartment that we bought, it's pretty small, but it's lovely and it's ours. This is the most important thing, obviously. Well, you'd expect that, right? If you bought an apartment, you'd expect it to be yours at the end of the process. But it's a good feeling having your own place. It's a reassuring feeling, and it's a feeling of responsibility. It's proper grown-up living, proper adult life. But we had to completely change the interior of the apartment because we wanted to move the walls. We wanted to redesign it completely to try and optimize the space. That's quite a big project. Some of you will know what that involves because you've done it yourselves. Other people, you've got no idea because you haven't been through it. But it's complicated, and it's incredibly stressful trying to deal with it. I keep saying I won't bore you with the details, and I mustn't. Let's just say that right now everything's still completely upside down. It feels like that. We're into the flat. The work was done, but it wasn't done completely properly. Mostly it was good, right? The walls don't fall down. Okay. The floor is where it should be. You know what I mean? Like, there is a shower. We have running water. But there are little things, little issues that need to be fixed. I'm not going to go into all the details, but just to give you a sample, stuff like, I don't know what, like there's problems in the shower because the paint that they used doesn't stay on the wall properly. They seem to have used the wrong paint. Some of the tiles are chipped. The sink doesn't seem to be straight, and other such things. We don't have a washing machine. They tried to deliver it today, but the space that was created for the washing machine to go into, it's got its own little fitted cupboard. That space is not big enough. They just didn't make it wide enough to fit a washing machine, which is what you would expect, right? If guys are building a cupboard for a washing machine, you would expect them to build it so that it can fit a washing machine. But no, not in this case, as we discovered when the delivery guys came and tried to put the washing machine in, and no, sorry, it won't go. But we are not able to take the washing machine back. That's not what we've been asked to do. That's not our job. So we've got a washing machine. It's just not plugged in, and it's currently blocking the hallway, and we don't know what we're going to do. That's just a small sample of what we're dealing with. No oven, no dishwasher. We have a fridge, but the fridge, I could go on. So everything is totally up in the air and crazy. There's no internet connection here at the flat either. And the entire place is just boxes and bags and stuff everywhere. We've got no sofa. My daughter's bedroom is completely full of stuff. So she is sleeping on the floor in our bedroom, which is also full of stuff. It's just stuff everywhere. And we don't even have a mirror in the flat. There is a mirror somewhere in this apartment, but it's wrapped up and in a box. So I'm sure that I look like a sort of crazy person with hair going in all directions. My beard needs to be trimmed. And so, yeah, you get the idea. That's what the physical space is like. It's a bit like that in our minds as well. We're still stressed out, trying to piece our lives back together, trying to remember who we are and what's going on. The analogy I've been using when describing the situation to my friends and family is a bit like, those puzzles. I don't know if you have them where you're from, but these sorts of puzzles that kids play with or used to play with. It's like a little plastic jigsaw puzzle with a picture that's been cut into different sections, a picture that's been cut into different squares. And then the squares all slide in different directions, and the picture gets sort of all jumbled up. And the idea is that you have to put the picture back together by sliding the squares in different directions until you get the picture. But the thing is, there's only one open space where you can slide the squares. So you have to, if you want, for example, to get one square from the bottom right corner to the top left-hand corner, you've got to slide all the squares over into the empty space, and then you're kind of sliding things from one... Oh, it's even complicated to explain, let alone actually experience. So that's what life is like. In order to get access to that box, which has got the mirror in it, we need to move this thing here and then move that thing there. And So it's crazy. Why am I telling you this? Why am I telling you this? Well, I'm just giving you an update on what's going on in LEPland and maybe explaining why there's been a bit of a delay in uploading episodes. And also, I just want to kind of let you know that because of this situation, I don't know when I'll be able to upload another episode after this. Hopefully soon, when the internet gets connected. But the amazing team who we had working on this flat, for some reason, literally cut the fibre optic cable that was installed in the flat. They cut it. Don't know why. The guy from the telephone company came today to connect the internet, and he was like, where's your internet box? And I said, oh, we don't have one. Here's the cable, I said, pointing to a little bit of cable sticking out of the wall that had just been cut. And I still don't understand why they cut it. So the guy was like, wait, it's been cut? Well, I can't help you then. We're going to have to arrange another meeting, and we'll have to get some engineers to come and reconnect your apartment to the fibre optic box in the hallway. And, it's going to take a couple of weeks, and, you'll have to pay for that one, I'm afraid. So it's like, okay, great. No internet for another week or two. So I don't know. I'm going to have to... we're using our mobile phones as Wi-Fi hotspots, but we don't have that much internet in our mobile phone contracts. It's complicated. Let me drink some tea. It does feel better. It feels better. Things feel better with a cup of tea. It's true. Tea just helps. It's a good solution to almost any problem. What's the matter? Your life is in complete disarray and chaos, and you don't have internet? Just have a cup of tea. And obviously, it doesn't solve all problems. What's the matter? There's a Terminator trying to kill me, and he can't be stopped. Just have a cup of tea, everything will be all right. Obviously, it doesn't solve all problems. But anyway, rambling is one of the things I do. This is rambling, just talking and talking and talking. But the idea is that I'm trying to keep you entertained and keep you engaged because I am feeding you English all the time. All of this is English that I'm giving to you. So the reason why I just explained all that stuff is that, yes, I might not be able to upload episodes regularly for the next few weeks. If Luke's English podcast goes quiet, then I want you to know that I'm still here. I'm still working on episodes, but I'm not able to record or upload because of all the different disruptions. As I said before, my life is like a puzzle at the moment, and I am putting all the pieces back together. Again, if you've listened to recent episodes, you'll know that I also have an office. We got a little room, a small room, a lovely room, which I cannot wait to move into. It's going to be the podcast headquarters. Guess what? Yeah, that room is also currently full of stuff. Lots of boxes and things in there too. So I need to, put that room together, fit some shelves, put the things on the shelves, get a desk, get an electricity supply in the room, get an internet connection there, and then I'll be able to set up shop in there and make episodes of the podcast from there. So we've got a lot of work to do before everything is organized and sorted and I can start making podcast episodes in the regular way that I like to. Now, let me, at this point, let me restate the aims for this podcast. Okay, let me just kind of refocus here and talk to you about my aims for this podcast, right? So I've been doing this podcast for over 12 years. This is the 13th year. Unlucky for some, but I'm not superstitious, so I'm not having that 13 thing. It's fine. So restate the aims for this podcast with lists of example episodes in the archive for each aim. So I don't know when it was, but a few years ago on my website, I published a page that says the aims for Luke's English podcast. Okay, and I'm just going to read those things out in order to just re-clarify and refocus the whole point of this podcast. So, what is the purpose of this podcast? And by the way, you can read this page. It's on my website, teacherluke.co.uk, where you see episodes in the menu. You will also see under episodes, it says aims of Luke's English podcast. By the way, if recently you had trouble with my website, if you had problems accessing the page, or if it wasn't loading, or if there was an error or something like that, yes, in the middle of all the other problems that we had in the Christmas period, including going to England to see my family and having to deal with all the COVID travel restrictions. Oh God, absolute nightmare. So in the middle of all that, of course, my website just went kaput completely. And so I had to get that fixed and stuff. But it should be working okay now. Okay. So just a heads up, the website had some problems, but it should be fixed now. Okay. teacherluke.co.uk. What is the purpose of this podcast? So here you can read my aims and listen to me say them for the Luke's English Podcast project, and some advice on how to use Luke's English Podcast to improve your English. So here are the aims, and there are how many things here? How many aims? About 10 or 11 aims. Aims, objectives, these are things that you want to achieve. Okay, whenever you do any kind of project, it's good to have aims, targets, things you want to get or achieve, and you focus your work on those things. It gives you direction. It's good for learning English too, of course. You have to have your aims and objectives and make them achievable, or at least define what it is that you're trying to achieve. So here are my aims. So first of all, to provide a resource of authentic speech for learners of English. So what that means is that I just want to give you a resource, meaning something that you can use to get authentic English. Now, of course, authentic English is everywhere, especially with the internet. You know, you can just, whatever, you can watch your movies, Netflix, YouTube channels, radio, whatever. There's authentic English everywhere. But the idea is that the difference with my podcast is that this is designed for you, that I am speaking authentically in the sense that I'm being natural and I'm being myself and I'm talking to you, hopefully without patronizing you. You know, I'm just talking to you on a human level, and it's this, most of the time it's unscripted. So this is authentic, real speech. I'm just speaking in the way that I would normally speak. But I know that I'm speaking to learners of English. So that means I know that I have to clarify certain things and explain certain things and so on. All right. So, that's one of the aims, is just to give you a source of English that you can listen to regularly in order to, as I've said, like consume English and get a regular supply of English in your life. So that's one of my aims. Another aim is to inform my audience about methods and strategies for improving their English. Okay, so that's you, my audience, and I want to give you tips and advice on how you can improve your English effectively. And I've done that lots of times in the past. So, yes, how many times am I going to say that I've been doing this for nearly 13 years? A lot of times. Maybe almost as many times as I say Happy New Year. By the way, Happy New Year, everyone. So anyway, yes, I'm going to refer to some previous episodes of the podcast, by the way, during this. So, and you'll find the list of any suggested episodes from my archive. You'll find the names and links to those on the page for this episode on my website. Okay, episode 756. So yeah, that's a large archive of episodes. And of course, I've done episodes on many different things. So I'm going to try and give you some suggestions of episodes that you can listen to. And if I am quiet over the next few weeks or months, then, you can dip into the episode archive and you can listen to some of these episodes I'm suggesting today. So to inform my audience about methods and strategies for improving their English, there are a few episodes, and I'm going to say these ones again, I think, later. Certainly there is... okay, hold on a second. Oh, of course, my computer is not connected to the internet because my phone is not on. Hold on. As I check the battery level on my audio recorder, it's only got 1 bar left, and my phone is down to 14%. This is the way I'm living at the moment. Just living on the edge with 1 bar of battery. Whoa, it's crazy. Terminators. So the episode I was talking about is episode 174, How to Learn English with Luke's English Podcast. You could also check out another episode which is called... Welcome to Luke's English Podcast, 16 Things You Should Know About LEP. That's 251. And also some others in the archive in which I basically explain how to learn English. That's right. There's one called How to Learn English. I created that. There it is. Episode 669 is simply called How to Learn English. And I tried to give you as much advice as I could in that one. So check that out if you want strategies for improving your English. Another aim is to educate my listeners about the English language by explaining or providing examples of grammar. So basically to do grammar stuff. Now, these days, I focus on the grammar stuff in premium episodes. So... when I wrote these aims, it was before I had launched my premium subscription. These days, I've got a premium subscription, which means that these are extra episodes that you can listen to online on a computer or using the Luke's English Podcast app. Okay, you can get the Luke's English Podcast app from the App Store on your phone. Just search for Luke's English Podcast app in the App Store. So you can listen to premium episodes there or on a website. Yes. And it's very affordable. It costs $3 to $4 a month, depending on how regularly you pay. If you pay every month or once every 6 months or once every 12 months. It's cheaper if you pay once every 12 months. So it's, a small fee, and you get regular episodes that focus specifically on grammar and specifically on vocabulary and specifically on pronunciation without any of this rambling and talking about other things like talking about cups of tea and stuff. No, it's just focusing specifically on the language. So the premium episodes fulfill that aim, explaining or providing examples of grammar, and there have been premium episodes about articles, about sentence structure, about narrative tenses, verb tenses, present perfect tense, modal verbs, about the past, quantifiers, and more. But also there are a lot of free episodes in the archive that deal with grammar, and here is a selection. You've got episode 19 called Passive Verb Forms, episode 29, The Mystery Story, which also has a summary of narrative verb tenses. Episode 44 was called Telling Anecdotes, and it has a language review in it. Episode 53 was called Discussing Grammar with My Brother. That's where I asked my brother James some questions about grammar just to see how much a native speaker knows about the grammar of his own language. Episode 69 was called Common Errors and Typical Mistakes, and as the title suggests, it contains various common errors made by learners of English and their corrections. Episode 176 was called Grammar Verb Tense Review, and that should be a premium episode really, and it's as it does what it says on the tin. Basically, it's a complete review of all the verb tenses in English. That's 176. Remember, you can find this list on the page for this episode on my website. Episode 263 was called Past, Present and Future, and that is another chance to really understand the tenses in English with lots of context. Episode 372 was called The Importance of Anecdotes in English, and this episode had a bit of everything. Useful tips for telling stories, a review of narrative verb tenses, another one, some authentic spoken stories by members of my family, and some vocabulary explanations too. Episode 406 had some grammar in it, past continuous tense. Episode 518 had some stuff about future continuous and present perfect continuous verb forms and the kind of grammar that you get in newspaper headlines. And episode 518B, that's part 2 of 518, that's in the Luke's English podcast app. It's a free app-only episode, and that one deals with other grammar questions about things like verbs like hope and wish and relative clauses and prepositions and other details, and that one is only available in the Luke's English podcast app. And if you want a sample of what you can get from premium episodes, then episode 518 and 518B are quite good examples of what the premium subscription offers. And if you want to sign up to LEP Premium, or if you just want any more information about it, go to teacherluke.co.uk/premium info. And that tells you pretty much everything I think you need to know about the premium episodes. Okay, another aim of this podcast is to enrich the vocabulary of my listeners by presenting and teaching natural English usage in context. Essentially, to expand your vocabulary. Okay, and, well, there are many episodes that deal with vocabulary. And, of course, as I've said, the premium episode, most of the episodes in the premium section are about vocab, actually, as well as grammar and pronunciation. But you can check my archive of free episodes, and you could do maybe a Command F search or a Control F search and just type the word vocabulary in your search bar, and that should reveal episodes with vocabulary in the title or in the summary. Okay, the episode archive on my website, teacherluke.co.uk, and then episodes in the menu, and that's where you'll find the episode archive. Okay, so go there and just search for anything with the word vocabulary. There's tons of stuff where I sort of directly teach you vocab. Also, whenever I'm doing episodes, whenever I'm talking to you, I'm being mindful about the words that I'm selecting, and I am kind of like, well, sometimes I just sort of like highlight bits of language, you know. I'm an English teacher. I've been an English teacher for 20 years. And so I'm always teaching you in one way or another. And that means I'm being mindful about the language I'm using when I talk to you. That doesn't mean that I'm simplifying. It just means that I know that I'm teaching you, even when it's not clear. Even when I might not be standing at the front of a classroom with a whiteboard behind me and a pen in my hand. I might not be doing that, but I am still teaching you. And I'm trying to enrich your vocabulary all the time. Another aim is to entertain my audience by producing fun and interesting content specifically targeted at learners of English as a second language. So I want to be entertaining. I want this podcast to be fun and interesting and entertaining because, that helps with motivation. If you want to improve your English properly, you're going to have to spend a lot of time with the English language, and that requires motivation. And so in order to help you with your motivation, I want this to be fun and entertaining and involving. And, sometimes I do stupid things and talk about stupid stuff just to make you laugh. And sometimes I'll talk about my own life, not because I'm all about oversharing my personal life. I don't really want to do that. But I talk about, for example, my apartment and problems that we're having with the washing machine in order to sort of bring you in to a personal world, to sort of invite you into the world of English. That's the idea. And I want it to be entertaining. So sometimes I'll do things just for comedy reasons. Long-term listeners will know that I'm also a stand-up comedian, which means that I go on stage and make audiences of people laugh, or at least try to make them laugh by telling stories and jokes and, comedy. So I do stand-up. I've been doing stand-up for over 10 years. And so I try and, bring a bit of that spirit to my episodes as well. So sometimes I do things, honestly, just for fun. It's not always about teaching. Sometimes it's just for the comedy and just to make you laugh. And that's just to, well, what's the word? What's the best way to put it? That's like a spoonful of sugar. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. So making things fun and enjoyable hopefully just allows you to continue listening. So another one of the aims I could add is I just want you to listen longer, right, for longer periods of time, not just for 15 minutes, but I want you to listen to something for a longer period. And listening for longer periods of time is definitely good for your English because it helps you to develop that concentration and ability to focus, and you get more English, more serving, a bigger serving of English. Yes, my episodes are long, and I know that. And that's okay as long, I want you to keep listening. So longer periods of time, it's actually better for your English. And I want you to listen long term. So more than just a couple of weeks of listening on a regular basis, but, listen, become a long-term listener and get English into your life. It will help you. And I know this for sure because I have testimonies from long-term listeners who've been listening for many years and who have noticed a definite improvement and definite impact on their English after having been with me for all that time. So I want you to listen for longer periods. I want you to listen long-term, and I want you to listen regularly as well. All these things help. And so hopefully if I can bring a bit of fun and personality to it, then that's going to make that easier for you. And then another aim is to highlight particular aspects of English culture, including themes about Britishness, accounts of key moments in history, politics and the arts, with a particular focus on comedy and film. So culture, sometimes I just sort of talk about culture. I talk about politics with my dad in episodes of the Rick Thompson Report. I talk about films and TV shows. I talk about British comedy and listen to extracts of comedy shows and performances and break them down for language to help you understand everything, and other stuff as well. Another aim of this podcast is to raise awareness of many features of British English pronunciation and provide practice of repeating certain phrases or constructions. So I want you to become more familiar with British English accents. So not just my accent, but the other regional accents that you'll find in the UK. I want you to have experience of listening to them and becoming more familiar with them. Okay, because it's not all just about received pronunciation or a standard kind of BBC English accent. It's not all just that. If you want to be genuinely good at English, you've got to be able to deal with the different varieties of English and not just have a narrow focused, a narrow exposure to only one kind. Your English will be weaker. You need to be able to listen to all the different varieties of English and be kind of comfortable with them all. That doesn't mean you should, you can choose which accent you have when you speak, but at least I want you to become familiar with the wide variety of English accents. So I do episodes about pronunciation and different regional accents. For example, episode number 224 was called Pronunciation, Verb Tenses and Connected Speech. And that one is all about how native speakers really pronounce sentences in different tenses. So how words are squashed and how words are connected together. Episodes 485 and 486 was called Difficult Words to Pronounce in English with Paul Taylor. That was a double episode with a video. The video is something like 40 plus difficult words to pronounce, something like that. But also the audio version is Paul and me talking about difficult words and sort of having fun doing tongue twisters and things. And you can use that to help you as well. And episode 682 was called Key Features of English Accents Explained. And that's where I kind of explored the main differences between standard English pronunciation, which I it's probably my accent, and then the non-standard regional or colloquial accents. You know, the accents you get from Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, parts of London, and so on. Okay? There are I've done lots of accents about, I've done lots of accents. I have. I'd like to do accents, but I've done lots of episodes about specific accents as well. So check the archive for that, the Manchester accents, Liverpool accents, and so on. Another aim is to keep my audience engaged in the listening process long term by providing a resource to help them laugh while they learn. So I've talked about that. And another aim is to make people laugh out loud on public transport while listening to the podcast, which I hope I achieve sometimes, because I actually do get messages from people saying, I listened to this episode and I couldn't stop laughing. I was on the bus and I couldn't stop laughing and it was really embarrassing, which is definitely one of my aims. I want to embarrass you as much as possible by making you snigger or giggle or chuckle, or crack up whenever you are in public, maybe on a bus or a train or just walking down the street, riding a bike or whatever. I want you to be laughing, right? Now, if you're not laughing, that's fine. It's just normal. That's okay. You're a ninja. No one knows what you're thinking because you got a poker face. But if I can make you smile and other people go, huh, why is that person smiling? Then good, my work is done. At least, right? I want to raise a smile. There's nothing wrong with smiling, is there? No. There's no law against it. No, well, go ahead then. Smile. Smile for I don't know what. Smile for we need something to smile for. Smile for peace in 2022. I don't know. And another aim is my final aim is to dominate the world with an army of LEP Ninjas equipped with biscuits and good English. Okay, to be fair, one of my listeners asked me to add this as an aim for my podcast, and thanks to Chris Benitez for suggesting that one. I think I've probably read out these aims on the podcast before, so long-term listeners, you can tell me. Have I done this before? Probably have. After 756 episodes, I've probably repeated myself a few times, and I've probably said that as well at some point as well. I've said that I've repeated myself before, so I'm repeating the fact that I'm repeating myself. This is like Inception, but for talking sort of thing. So, yeah, those episodes, the ones I suggested and all the others, can be found in the Luke's English Podcast app or via the episode archive on my website. That's my website and episodes in the menu. And most good podcasting apps will have the entire episode archive, like Pocket Casts and most of the good ones. But I think iTunes or Apple Podcasts doesn't show all of the episodes. So if you're using the Apple Podcasts app, only some of the episodes are available there, I think. Spotify should have them all. YouTube doesn't show all the episodes either. By the way, I do upload my episodes onto YouTube. Last year, 2021, I started uploading video versions of my episodes. So the audio version as a normal audio podcast, and then a video version on YouTube as well, where you could see my face while I'm talking, if that helps. I should say that the audio versions usually have more content in them. Sometimes the video versions, especially if it's just an interview with someone, the video version will just be the interview, and the audio version has extra stuff, including an introduction and an ending part. So there you go. I mean, if you want to see, if you like the visuals, you can check out the YouTube versions, but you should know that often the audio versions have more content. And this is, first and foremost, this is an audio podcast, which also has a YouTube channel. You can check my YouTube channel. It's Luke's English Podcast on YouTube. And this one, there's no video for this one. Well, it is on YouTube, but you won't be able to see my face with my my unshaven face, because I don't have a mirror. As I told you that, didn't I? Yeah, no mirror, so I can't shave. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to shave without a mirror. It's not a good idea. You might cut your nose off, or another important feature. It's not recommended. Even with an electric shaver, it doesn't feel right. And, I might miss a bit. So I haven't shaved. But that's not the reason why there's no video. There's no video version for this because, well, I've got no internet in the apartment. It's difficult to upload a video onto YouTube when you've got no internet. Podcast episode, audio, it's easier. The file is shorter. I can do it through my mobile phone. But anyway, also, I mean, my computer, I desperately need a new laptop. This one's got... Okay, I won't tell you more about that. But anyway, normally YouTube video versions, except for this episode, video versions might return in a few weeks or maybe a couple of months. We'll see. But anyway, check out the Luke's English Podcast app if you want the full episode archive and some free app-only episodes and also access to the premium content. Just search the App Store on your phone for Luke's English Podcast app. All right then. How long have I been talking? 50 minutes. You know what? I'm going to continue reading some of the things I wrote on the aims page on my website. And these are some things I wrote about how to use Luke's English Podcast to improve your English. You can find this text on my website. As I said, teacherluke.co.uk. Got Teacher Luke, right? Teacher, you know how to spell that. Luke, that's Luke. Right? Not look, not luck, not like, or anything else. And I've said that before too, but I have to keep saying it because people always get my name wrong. It's Luke, Luke, like Luke Skywalker from Star Wars. teacherluke.co.uk. And then click episodes in the menu and you'll find this text underneath the aims that I've just gone through. So here we go. People from all over the world use my podcasts to improve their English, and lots of people email me to tell me how much they love the podcast and find it useful. Thank you for your messages. Some of you might be wondering how you can improve your English by using the podcast. I'll tell you more about this in a moment, but first let me recommend a couple of podcast episodes you could listen to. And here I've recommended episode 174, which is how to use the podcast to improve your English, and episode 251, which was 16 things you should know about Luke's English Podcast. So let me continue reading here. Many people tell me that they are completely addicted to the show. Usually they say that they found the podcast via one episode in particular and then start listening to all the others before becoming completely hooked. I have quite a hardcore following. The podcast won the Macmillan Dictionary Award 4 times, thanks to votes from my audience, and it was nominated for a British Council Elton Award a few years ago, so I must be doing something right. Luke's English Podcast combines English teaching with plenty of entertaining conversation, humour, and genuine insight into the culture of English and the English language. My methodology and approach are based on the idea that language is acquired by engaging with it in authentic form over long periods of time. I should also add that it also helps to do some more sort of focused studying as well, that it's a mix of the two. Right. Now, but engaging with English in authentic ways over long periods of time, basically listening and reading regularly. Now, although this is not the only way to improve your English, listening to natural, authentic speech over quite long periods of time can greatly improve your listening skills, pronunciation, and vocabulary. This goes on to improve your spoken English and your general instinct for grammar. I try to balance this approach by regularly recording episodes in which I directly teach you vocabulary, pronunciation, or grammar. And these days, that's the premium episodes. Good grammatical awareness is based on instinct as much as on active knowledge of the rules of English. Right? When you take an English exam, you have to answer questions that test your knowledge and use of grammar or vocabulary. For example, consider this question, right? Imagine you're taking an English test and you've got a question like this. So the reason I'm saying this is because I want you to consider how we know the answers to questions in grammar tests? Right? Do we know because we've studied these things specifically? Yes, maybe. Or do we know because we just sort of have an instinct? Certain bits of English just feel right and certain bits of English feel wrong. So with that in mind, I'd like you to try and consider this question. So fill the gap in the sentence with the appropriate word. So here's the sentence. I just can't rely this car anymore. It keeps breaking down. I need a new one. So I just can't rely this car anymore. So is it number one, I just can't rely with this car anymore? Is it number two, I just can't rely from this car anymore? Is it number three, I just can't rely on this car anymore? Or is it number four, I just can't rely to this car anymore? Well, so I just can't rely with this car. I just can't rely from this car. I just can't rely on this car. And I just can't rely to this car. Well, the answer is three. It's on. I can't rely on this car anymore. It keeps breaking down. I'm not explaining that phrasal verb. Well, maybe I can explain it. If you can rely on something, it means you can trust it. You know it's going to work. And you can put your faith in it. You know that it will be there and it will work when you need it to work. Right? For example, if you've got a car, you really need a car that's reliable. You want to be able to rely on it so that every time you put the key in the car and turn it, the car will start. Or if you, I don't know, you've got some other method for starting the car these days. If you press the button or open the app or whatever it is, that the car will start every time. You need a reliable car. You need a car that you can rely on. Okay? So, yeah. The answer is three. On. Rely on. So I'm guessing that you knew the answer. Maybe some of you didn't. If you didn't know the answer, hopefully now you know the phrase, right? But for those of you who did know the answer, I'd like you to think about this. How did you know the answer? And I really want you to think about it. How did you know that on was right? Now, do you remember learning the phrase rely on in a book or in a class? Well, maybe you did. But for many of you, the answer just felt correct. Your instinct just said rely on. It just feels like the right answer. And if it didn't feel like the right answer, then, well, that's all right. Spend more time with the language and notice the phrase rely on more and more, and you will notice it now more and more. Rely on, relies on, relied on. And that will reinforce it. But anyway, for those of you who got it right, your instinct just said rely on is the correct answer. Well, this instinct is what you develop when you read or listen to the language a lot. Your brain builds up a kind of memory bank of all the words that you've seen and heard. So when you see rely and then a gap, you automatically feel that on is the right answer. Why? Because you've seen it and you've heard rely on lots of times. So the point is that listening to English a lot can really help you get a feel for the language. You learn grammar rules by the frequency in which you hear patterns. You learn about good pronunciation by hearing the language a lot. You develop an ear for English. You get a sense of it and a feeling for it. It's just like when you live in a foreign country to learn English. Let's say you've moved to the UK to learn English. A lot of people say it's the best way to learn a language. Just live in that country and get completely surrounded by the language every day. Eventually you pick it up and you learn it well. That's because you're hearing it so much and you're getting used to the rhythm and intonation. Also, I would add, again, to add something, I'd add that it's because you're developing meaningful connections with the language. You're having meaningful interactions with the language. And that's one of the most important things, that your connection, your exposure to the language is meaningful, that it means something to you personally. It's no good learning English as if it's some abstract thing that you just need in order to get a job or something. The best way to acquire English is to get into a personal relationship with it, get it into your life, get it into your brain, get it into your heart, and that is what happens as a consequence of living in an environment in which English is used. That's the idea of immersion. So it's like that, because because you hear English so much, you end up getting used to it and it becomes part of you and part of your life. So the idea is that you can use Luke's English podcast to do this. It's like living in another country. Okay, you're living in LEPland in this case. You can listen a lot, you can pick up bits of vocabulary, you can get a feel for the language, you can understand pronunciation and all kinds of cultural stuff. And not only that, but many listeners tell me the best thing about the podcast is simply that it makes them laugh out loud on a bus. So please do enjoy the podcasts and good luck with your English. Okay, and I hope that you have a lovely time with me in 2022 or 2022, and that we manage to deal with the Terminators, or at least that if the Terminators do come, that they're nice. But hopefully there will be no Terminators at all, just lots of nice English learning opportunities and experiences all throughout the year. I could continue rambling. I could talk more, but I will leave that for further episodes of the podcast, episodes coming in the future. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for listening, and I will speak to you again. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. Bye, 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 bye. Thanks for listening to Luke's English podcast. For more information, visit teacherluke.co.uk.